Oral questions by members.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. BC is at a crossroads. We have all the potential we could ever want to become the Norway of North America. But instead, we sell our natural gas at an 85% discount to the Americans. And Canada sells its oil at a 20 to 30% discount to the Americans. So much for elbows up by this Premier. Instead, he has delivered record deficits, people struggling and fleeing BC, shuttered hospitals, and a collapsing economy. After 9 years in government, why does this Premier continue to put ideology ahead of fighting for average, everyday British Columbians?
Premier.
It's great to be back, and welcome to all the members of the House. Well, the member's just wrong. BC's economy is holding strong despite major challenges. I mean, our forest sector just heard a 10% additional tariff because apparently our lumber is a national security threat to the United States, as if it's a threat to receive affordable, high-quality building materials that Americans can use to build their homes. That's what we're dealing with right now. Russia has lower tariff access to the United States right now compared to Canada. So these are serious and challenging threats, but despite that, British Columbia's GDP growth since 2017 is second among all provinces, second only to PEI, Honourable Speaker. We added 12,000 full-time jobs in 2025 alone. But I know a lot of people are struggling out there with affordability, with the cost of living, and I can assure them that we are working to grow our economy. In fact, BC will lead the country and will ensure we're delivering high-quality jobs for people in every corner of the province. We have more than $40 billion in private sector projects. We were 40% of the major projects that the federal government identified as being close to shovel-ready and ready to go. We could have filled up that whole list, Honourable Speaker. The best days are yet to come from British Columbia. We've got to support our people, we've got to grow jobs, and in fact, we're going to support this entire country.
Leader of the Official Opposition, supplemental.
Well, I guess there's a new definition for rose-colored glasses. Take immigration out of it, and our economy grew at just 0.14% per year for the last decade. The worst since the Great Depression. And this Premier says he's got $40 billion, and that is one project before this government took power. There were hundreds of billions in projects before that. Mr. Speaker, the Premier says, and I quote him here, that a new pipeline would be, I quote, a direct economic threat to the kind of economy he's trying to build, end quote. He talked about the Americans going after us, and yet he is perfectly willing to see us selling our oil at a 20 to 30% discount. He's perfectly willing to see that natural gas go to the Americans at an 80% discount. Enough of charity to the Americans. This government is broke, and we have thousands of workers out on the lawn of this building protesting because they can't be treated fairly. And I'm sorry, this Premier seems to think that economy and revenue can run from ideology and unicorn farts. It doesn't take that, Mr. Speaker. It takes a lot more. So instead of doing hand-picked projects by this Premier needs to get government out of the way. It needs to get to a place where we stop giving the charity to the Americans and we actually start building wealth for British Columbians. So will this government stop being a massive obstacle by opposing projects that are coming forward and actually start opening our economy up for the success of all British Columbians?
Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Well, the member says that people are fleeing the province, and the next breath he says, well, if it wasn't for people moving to British Columbia, there wouldn't have been growth. He needs to make up his mind about his facts, Honourable Speaker. He needs to make up his... In the same breath as he promotes an imaginary pipeline project from Alberta to our north coast that will seriously compromise real major projects representing tens of billions of dollars that are dependent on the support of coastal First Nations and communities along the line, as he puts those projects at direct threat in order to ship raw bitumen to China at the expense of BC and Canadian taxpayers. While British Columbia has more than $40 billion in real Private sector.
Member. Please, member, please continue.
In real private sector projects that have proponents and financing and business plans and are making final investment decision. It's an incredibly exciting time for BC. It's a challenging time for BC residents. We have to deliver these projects. We cannot put them at risk for ideology or posturing. We have to deliver for British Columbians and Canadians because that is what Canadians expect. We will drive the national economy. We will create the jobs, and we will show that member what British Columbians could do together.
Member for Delta South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In this Premier's economy, even essential services are not reliable. That includes emergency rooms. We have seen repeated ER closures in every community across this province. My hospital, the Delta Hospital's ER, just closed again for the 4th time this year on Saturday night. An entire city of more than 110,000 people had no access to emergency care last Saturday night. This isn't a staffing glitch. This is a public health crisis caused by years of inaction and neglect from this NDP government. Will this government commit today that ERs across this province stay open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
Minister of Health.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. Thank you to the member for the question. What happened on Saturday night in his community is very challenging for the city, for the residents, for the people who depend on emergency services to be there for them when they need it, like people in communities large and small across British Columbia do. Mr. Speaker, that's why we first need to thank all those healthcare staff who are stepping up to fill the vacancies and the gaps in scheduling that we're experiencing because of a shortage of healthcare workers. And Mr. Speaker, that's why we have to continue the actions that we're taking in the short term, reaching out from all the turmoil down in the States to ask U.S. physicians and nurses, nurse practitioners to move to British Columbia to be part of our universal public health care system. Mr. Speaker, it's working. We've had 1,400 applications, 140 jobs accepted. Mr. Speaker, in the Fraser Health Authority alone, where the Delta General Hospital is, we've had 154 job applications in 2 months alone. But, Mr. Speaker, that's not enough. That's why we've got to train the next generation of doctors. The member speaks about not taking action. Well, the leader of his party failed to take action, failed to build the new medical school in Surrey when he had the opportunity, something this government is doing and that will continue to do.
Delta South supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The people of Delta and across the province are tired of the excuses. Year after year after year in question periods. Seniors are being turned away and parents are being told to drive hours away for emergency treatment. At UBCM, Delta Council requested an urgent meeting with the Minister of Health to discuss ER closures in my community, but the minister refused to meet with them. The same thing happened for multiple mayors and councillors at UBCM last week, Mr. Speaker. Accountability matters, and this minister is hiding from everybody. If this minister cannot guarantee basic emergency services for British Columbians and is too busy to meet with locally elected representatives, then what does this minister get paid for?
Minister of Health.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. As a former mayor of a small community, I know that there is nothing more important than being able to get FaceTime with a minister, to build a relationship and to have those difficult conversations. Mr. Speaker, I received over 100 meeting requests for UBCM. Each and every one of those conversations is important, but a person has to prioritize, and I prioritize those communities that are the farthest away, that have the hardest time getting in front of me and being able to talk to me. That's why I traveled into the interior and up north to visit as many small communities as I could, to hear directly from those community leaders, to hear directly from those frontline physicians and nurses about what was taking place in those communities. Mr. Speaker, earlier this summer, I sat down with the Delta Mayor and Council for almost an hour in their council chambers. I spoke to the mayor this weekend. I'll be meeting again with Mayor and Council this week as soon as they're able to find space for me. I know those conversations are important, and I'm going to continue to prioritize them. But to characterize this as something else is absolutely ridiculous. I am deeply committed to this file. We are going to continue the work to attract, to train, to retain more healthcare workers, to build up the healthcare workforce that we need, that we are so proud of in this province, to deliver the healthcare for people when they need it, where they need it.
House Leader of the Third Party.
Honourable Speaker, public service workers in British Columbia are pushed to the brink. Housing, food costs, inflation, the cost of living keeps climbing, yet it's a fact that many BCGEU workers make less than the average BC worker. This government is in the history books for all the wrong reasons. They've let one of the longest public service strikes drag on for 6 weeks, and now students can't access their loans to pay rent. Small businesses are feeling the pinch. The government has the physical capacity to act. What's missing is the will. I just joined thousands of BCGEU members and supporters on the legislative lawn. What is their question? Through you, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, why won't this government meet the BCGEU's calls?
Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thank you to the member for the question. This is an important issue. We have two competing priorities here. One is to make sure that those amazing people who do the hard work for British Columbians every day get a fair deal that's supported so that they can support their families and their communities, so they can do a good job at work. The other is we're in tight fiscal times here in British Columbia, but not just in British Columbia, across the country, nationally, in many places around the world. Got a slowing global economy, low resource prices. People are making careful decisions before investing, whether businesses or individuals. And so we've got these two things that are in competition. We've got to be fair to taxpayers. We've got to recognize the circumstances we're in. We've got to be fair to our workers and make sure they're treated well. We're ensuring that our offer on the table ensures that workers don't fall behind, that we're meeting inflation, that there's a group of workers that need to, as the member says, be caught up to ensure that they're earning a reasonable wage for the work that they're doing. And the work's going to happen at the table with the BCGEU. I hope we can get back to the table and reach a fair agreement for everybody.
Member supplemental.
Honourable Speaker, Halloween is around the corner, and this NDP government is a ghost of its former self. Public service, non-union management jobs have grown much faster than BCGEU jobs over the past decade, and wages have fallen behind the private sector, driving workers away. This happened on your watch. And to note other provinces, Alberta and Ontario, facing the same challenges we do, have met their union's demand for fair wages. Through you, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, what will this government do to retain the public service workers British Columbians rely on every day of the week?
Premier.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker. The member raised a couple of points that deserve to be addressed. First of all, other provinces, we had a much more generous agreement with the BCGEU than other provinces did. They're playing catch-up with their workers, with their current agreements. We had an 18% increase over the term of the contract, which was better than inflation over the period of time of record inflation, I will note. When we had the resources and we were able to do it, we make sure that we're able to bring our workers along with us. The other piece about the size of the public service, I agree. We've got to slim down the administration within the public service. We've reduced full-time equivalents by more than 800 in just the last few months, and we're going to continue to do that work to get rid of the administrative costs, whether it's in the health authority or whether it's in core government. We're ensuring that we're doing that, but we're not going to impact the frontline services. We saw that when those guys, the Conservatives, were on this side of the House, and they cut those frontline services that people depended on. We're not going to do it. We're going to protect frontline services, and we're going to make sure that people are looked after.
Leader of the Fourth Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Friday, I traveled to Universal Ostrich Farms in Edgewood. I met with Katie Pasidney. For nearly a year, she's fought heroically to save her 500 ostriches from a senseless slaughter. The CFIA knows these birds are healthy, yet instead of testing them, they built a kill pen out of hay bales and have barred Katie from even seeing her own animals. Now we've learned that Spirit, one of her birds, has died in CFIA custody after days of suffering. And the Premier hasn't lifted a finger. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Premier is this: why has he abandoned Katie and her ostriches in their time of need?
Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much for the question. I think the member understands, as we do, that avian influenza is a federally regulated disease, and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is the lead on investigating and responding to this virus. This is a deadly virus that continues to come into our province in the fall and has continued on until the spring. Right now, this disease is landing on our doorstep. It is something that is deadly to the poultry industry in this province and right across North America. We are doing our best as a province to find ways to work with farmers, including bringing tables together, because it is now known that this disease crosses over to the dairy sector. And so we are working with farmers to fund projects as we find the best ways to stave off this virus from our poultry businesses as it approaches right now. It is really difficult to hear the stories from this farm, this ostrich farm, and we understand how difficult it is for those farmers. We know that all farmers who face a depopulation order in this province are facing a very difficult time for them and their families and their communities. And we are doing our best to support farmers as we see this disease pressure come into our province right now.
Member supplemental.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you. And I appreciate that answer, Minister. But doing our best? How are you doing your best? I haven't seen any letters written. I haven't seen even a tweet go out. I haven't seen anything being done in support of Katie Pasidney's farm. Has the Premier, have you even visited her and lent an ear to what's going on up there? They have 227 days virus-free in those birds, and why won't they test? Why not test them and see if they're deadly? You say it's a deadly virus, this is a deadly issue, and could kill other animals. Where's the proof of that? Why don't we insist that there be another test done? Mr. Speaker, last spring the Premier tried to pass a bill that would have given him the power to override any law in this province. So he's clearly not afraid to use power when it suits him. But when ordinary British Columbians like Katie Pasidney need him to stand up for their livelihoods, their farms, and even for the humane treatment of animals, he's nowhere to be seen.
Question, member.
With due respect, Mr. Speaker, I hear a lot of latitude given to other members of this House. I have listened to long, rambling preambles to their questions. So, Mr. Speaker, again to the Premier, why won't he use his power to help Katie by demanding that Prime Minister Mark Carney save her beautiful birds from the senseless slaughter?
Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, in fact, did meet with Katie in the spring, and we discussed the situation. I've sat with Katie, just like I've sat with other farmers across the province. One farm in particular in the Fraser Valley has been depopulated 4 times as we try and find our way through to a solution with this disease. But the CFIA leads that file. As a province, we are doing everything we can in our jurisdiction to try and protect our poultry industry. But it's very, very challenging. I understand what the member is saying about how tragic the situation is. We agree. But the CFIA leads this file on responding to the virus. And what we can do as a province is get behind making sure that our poultry industry is protected.
Member for Prince George Mackenzie.
$2 million has gone to the Premier's friends, NDP insiders, and consultants. The list includes a joke writer for the Premier. It includes his friend Michael Bryant, and it includes former Cabinet Minister George Heyman, who was supposed to get the NDP a deal with the BCGEU. Meanwhile, the people delivering critical public services are told to settle for barely keeping up with inflation. Is this the economy that this Premier wants to build? One that rewards his friends and insiders over the frontline workers who are outside on the legislature lawn today?
Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. You know, I remember when the Conservatives, they had a different name, they were sitting on this side of the House, and they threw out of work thousands of people that were delivering care for British Columbians across the province. That philosophy has not disappeared, Honourable Speaker. That philosophy has not disappeared. Their priority is not the workers delivering care for people. Their priority is something else entirely. And so for us, we'll stay focused on ensuring that the workers who are delivering that care and support for British Columbians, delivering frontline services, they are protected, that we get to a fair deal with them. We're going to make sure that happens. The member was asking about a contract speechwriter, an incredibly talented contract speechwriter that allows me to do the job that I do. I deliver multiple speeches. It's a necessary thing. When we hire when we hire staff, we hire them for their qualifications. And I assure you that you will never find anyone hired by me that is an active residential schools denier that promotes racism and hate. What you will find is us hiring people who are qualified, skilled, and bring an ability to do the job and get the job done for British Columbians.
Member for Kamloops Centre. Member after the question period, please. After the question period. Member for Kamloops Centre.
Thank you. Well, it sounds like the Premier is admitting that he hired 850 managers under his watch that he's now gotten rid of with his FTE reduction plan that he just talked about. Mr. Speaker, this is the problem. Today, the Premier decides to continue to deflect, as he always does, back in the Wayback Machine, back to regimes and previous governments. But he doesn't want to look at the two-year track record of his own premiership, a two-year track record where he arrived with a $6 billion deficit that is now, or surplus, which is now a record deficit. In fact, a deficit that's going to continue to climb. He was warned about the growing public service administration for years, and they ignored it. And now he wants a pat on the back because they're trying to adjust. And if they can get rid of 850 people without impacting public services, why did they hire them in the first place? What were they doing for the last several years? So, Mr. Speaker, it's quite simple. The debt has doubled under this Premier. The debt servicing cost has doubled under this Premier. No wonder they have no fiscal room to actually get a settlement. They're paying an extra $2.5 billion in interest payments alone this year than when this Premier took office as the Premier. But he doesn't want to talk about his own track record. He wants to talk about 20 years ago, because that's relevant to the 10,000 people that were on the front lawn today. So, Mr. Speaker, it's really quite simple. The minister, the Premier keeps saying that they're going to bend the curve. Unfortunately, they're bending it upwards and skyrocketing upwards with deficit and debt, and those costs are ever hampering this government. When will we see a proper fiscal plan that actually gets the province back on the right track and actually sees some control of spending with this government instead of everything going to his political friends and insiders?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thank you to the member opposite for the question. Like the rest of Canada, BC is facing significant fiscal headwinds. But we're taking action, Honourable Speaker. We already have reviewed government expenses and brought down $1.5 billion from the fiscal plan. But that is not enough. Honourable Speaker. We are reviewing, every ministry is doing the heavy lifting of reviewing every dollar that we spend here in British Columbia. And yes, we have taken action to freeze public service. And in fact, we've brought down 850 jobs. This is action we must take in the context of the economic circumstances we find ourselves in, Canada finds itself in, and around the world is the experience, Honourable Speaker. But BC still remains competitive to the rest of Canada. We have lower GDP debt ratios than almost the rest of Canada. And Honourable Speaker, we have a plan to bend the curve. Now, we know on the other side, when they were running during the election, they planned to spend $2 million more, Honourable Speaker.
Members. Member for Peace River South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This NDP government supports dredging the Burrard Inlet to accommodate fully loaded oil tankers, yet supports retaining a tanker ban policy on the North Coast. This makes no sense. In this Premier's vision of the economy, is it only NDP friends and insiders who get the jobs while everyone else needs to leave the province to find work?
Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions.
Well, it's our approach that British Columbians should get jobs. That's why we've supported, for example, with a policy.
Members.
Well, Honourable Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, who's yelling out in the first sentence, Honourable Speaker, opposes the North Coast transmission line, which will create thousands of jobs in British Columbia, opposes mining jobs in the Northwest, opposes renewable energy projects. All of those projects build British Columbia, build the electricity we need as a province, and move us forward, Honourable Speaker. On LNG, Honourable Speaker, we talk about export, we talk about who we're supporting, Honourable Speaker. We have the lowest emission LNG in the world, Honourable Speaker, and we have, there were no projects when the NDP took office, 0. There are now 3 under construction, and others that are facing are making their own final investment decisions. In short, Honourable Speaker, what you are seeing on every front is a government that builds the economy for workers, especially for union workers, high-paying jobs everywhere in BC.
Member for Kamloops North Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mills and workers across BC fear the future. They're struggling to keep the doors open and food on the table. Every day, they wait to find out if they're going to get a paycheck or a layoff notice. This minister talks about protecting workers' paychecks. What about protecting their jobs? Instead of listening to his hand-picked advisory council, why doesn't the minister talk to workers whose lives are actually impacted by the destruction he's brought into the BC forest industry?
Minister of Forest.
Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. The Premier talked about it in one of his answers, the challenges we're facing in forestry when Donald Trump last Monday announced a Section 232 investigation.
Members, please.
Mr. Speaker, some things don't change. Here we have an official opposition attacking the government, like they do, but who they should be attacking is Donald Trump. Why? Why do we have an American president who is unfairly treating Canadian lumber as a national security risk? 45% duties and tariffs that will exist on our softwood lumber sector.
Member.
What a joke. What a joke from the peanut gallery over there. Let's be very clear, Mr. Speaker. The President of the United States is attacking forestry workers from coast to coast to coast. On this side of the House, we're going to stand up for those workers. We're going to stand up for their paychecks, unlike the members opposite that would roll over for Donald Trump each and every day.
House Leader of the Official Opposition.
Throughout today's question period, we've been asking this government about the plan for the economy and about the plan for the massive deficit that we're staring down right now in British Columbia. And my question has to do with the people that are suffering under these circumstances because we continue to be surprised by the government's ability to set new records. On this Premier's watch, local food banks are doing just that. Food Banks BC has said, quote, another year of record-breaking demand for BC's hunger relief services, end quote, with Surrey Food Bank just hitting an all-time high. That means people are literally going hungry in this province. So these are not the kind of records that this government should be setting. And my question is it this government's vision for the economy, one where people can't even afford to buy food?
Minister of Jobs and Economic Growth.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I appreciate the member's question, Honourable Speaker, and no doubt there are some people that are having tough times in our communities. But, Honourable Speaker, we have a clear vision of where we want to go. In fact, I can share with members in this House that we are the envy of the country. We have provinces that wish they had the opportunities and the potential that British Columbia does, Honourable Speaker. What we're going to do is what we're already doing, Honourable Speaker, making smart investments, strategic investments, so that we can not only capture the opportunity of a whole host of private sector projects, unlike some other provinces, actual private sector projects with real investments. I know, Honourable Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition here, he hates when he wakes up in the morning and he hears good news. He hates when we get final investment decision in British Columbia because, Honourable Speaker,
Members, order. Members.
Honourable Speaker, most people in British Columbia wake up when they hear good news. They hear investment decisions coming into the province. They see BC getting 40% of the national projects. They would be happy, Honourable Speaker. They would be happy. Not the Leader of the Opposition. He wakes up and he says, oh, when am I going to say in question period today, Honourable Speaker? That is not the mentality that's going to take us forward, Honourable Speaker. We're making investments in our people. We're making investments in our economy. We're going to continue to do that as we go forward.
The bell ends the question period.